This is the Bloody Disgusting Podcast Network.
We're gonna carry on and plan the sequel, because let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.
And welcome back to Micro Queers. It's your weekly roundup of queer horror shorts, and I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're kicking off the new year with something that I was really depressed to watch at first until the turning point.
Yeah, I thought it might be nice to kick off 2021 with a little queer revenge.
Yeah, we were talking the queer horror short Pyotr495, and mild-ish content warning for this one. It does have a bit of a hate crime in it, and by a bit of hate crime, I mean it does have a hate crime, but it also doubles as a hate crime revenge movie.
Correct, yes. And I feel like we have a lot to unpack because, of course, this digs into some of the issues that we have about queer victims becoming villains. Mm-hmm. But just a little bit of background for people who don't know. So this short is directed by a Torontonian named Blake Mawson, and it stars Orphan Black's Alex Ozerov. And basically, the logline for this is set one evening in present-day Moscow. 16-year-old Pyotr is baited by an ultra-nationalist group known for their violent abductions and attacks, bolstered by Russia's LGBT propaganda law. But Pyotr has a dangerous secret.
So yeah, and when you sent this to me, Joe, you said, "Oh, it's like this is kind of like the same theme that we started this series with." And when you said that, I was like, "So it's Scream?" I didn't really do that.
Yeah, and I realized that's actually not entirely true because our first microqueers was actually the lesbian art horror short Instinct.
Gotcha.
So this is similar to Hey You, our second microqueers, which of course involved the Chechnyan gay hookup app. Remember, that was the one where it was the split screen between the guy in the UK and the guy in Chechnya.
Yeah, no, I do remember that. This. You know, you get the opening crawl that's like, hey, this is what Russia is like, and this is how they treat their gay community. And Putin had his, highest approval rates in 6 years or whatever, mm-hmm. because he wanted to, get the gays out of Russia. Or, I'm sorry, what is it? There are no gays in Russia.
Yeah, exactly.
And so as soon as this started, I was very much like, oh, I know where this is going.
And it knows that you know.
Which really works to its benefit. I can still imagine this being a difficult watch for some people until you get to that 8-minute mark when I honestly thought we were getting a werewolf movie.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I mean, because that's kind of like what the transformation reminds me of. But I do like that it's just kind of this unintelligible, nondescript monster thing.
A little bit demonic, a little bit bat-like. It's interesting. I like the creature design.
Yeah, almost kind of like Nightcrawler from X2.
Yeah, okay.
That's kind of what I was getting. But I do love the good demon-y voice we have here. And then, he also saves a fellow victim.
Yeah, it's like, okay. He went on this hookup app and ended up in a bad situation and then came out of it maybe with a boyfriend.
Yeah, that's true. So I don't think we need to go too much into the politics of Russia here. And listeners, the only reason I'm saying this is because we did do that in the Hey You microqueers episode. So if you want to hear that, go listen to that.
Actually, I'm going to stop you there because they are technically two different countries.
Oh, right. I think we actually went over that in that episode too.
We did, yeah. So Chechnya is not Russia. And I'll give you a very, very brief overview. So what we're talking about here is a law that was passed by the Federal Assembly on June 11th, 2013. And this is basically aimed at protecting children from information promoting the denial of traditional family values. So the whole idea was that if you tell children about homosexuality in a normalized way, it will promote family values. So by protecting children, it means censoring all information about queer lifestyles. So obviously this has really detrimental effects on queer youth who don't get any information about sex or acknowledgement that they are real or valued. And also importantly, this was then interpreted by right-wing extremist groups as condemnation on the queer community. So of course it was open range. Like, okay, then we can get these abductions, we can get these film videotapes. It suddenly becomes unsafe for queer citizens. So there was a rise in videos and photos of brutal treatment and like murders and abductions and tortures and so on, like we see in the short.
Yeah, I was gonna say just like what we get here, which puts it into a bit more context. So fuck me for trying to gloss over that aspect.
Well, I do have one other fun in quotation marks fun thing. So this ended up spiraling into 2014, and it became an international incident because that was the year that the Winter Olympics were happening in Russia. So there was a lot of outcry from athletes who were going, and they were trying to get advertisers to either boycott or speak out against Russia. Especially like there were a bunch of athletes who were basically told, well, if you go, you can't be out because we can't protect you. Like Canada actually didn't send certain athletes because they were like, we can't ensure your safety because you were an out figure. And so one fun thing, oh God, again, fun in quotation marks, is Putin actually said in specific relationship to the Sochi Olympics, he said, homosexuals would be welcome in Sochi for the Olympics, but added, just leave the children in peace. So that's why we specifically get that line from the female character in the short who says, like, I'm just protecting the children.
I'm like literally speechless. It's so upsetting. So yeah, we get, he goes to this no-net guy's place and...
Oh my God, that guy's a bodybuilder. He's got to be, right?
Yeah. I mean, no shade at all. Not my type, but no shade. And immediately gets beat up after like some mild pleasantries. I actually was surprised the tea wasn't dosed, which I thought was what was going to happen, and I thought we were going to be going into sexual assault territory. Glad we don't. But yeah, then we just get like they're abusing him in a bathtub, shaving his head, pouring urine on his face.
Yeah.
It's not pretty. Luckily, it is relatively short-lived, and then he becomes this monster and seeks revenge on all of them and gives them all pretty quick deaths. So, okay. I don't really even know if I buy into this whole turning the queer person into the monster. I know that's the phrase we use a lot. I guess I really signify it more with turning the queer person into the villain of the piece. So like I think we use the words monster and villain interchangeably a lot, and that's maybe not the best way to go about it.
That is true. Yeah.
He is literally a monster here, but he's certainly not the villain of this piece, despite the fact that he is murdering all these people.
Right. It's hard to watch the short and get any other sense than, oh, this is celebratory. We should be cheering this figure on because these people unabashedly deserve it.
Oh, 100%. And of course, you can come out with your moral antics and be like, well, no, I mean, like, if you kill them, you're just as bad as they are. Nah, fuck that. Sorry.
Yeah, fuck
that. They can die. It's great. I honestly would have preferred to see them get tortured. So honestly, he gave them, like, good, quick deaths that aren't as satisfying as what they could have been. But...
I will say that one of the things that I really appreciated is that the dialogue delivery by Ozarev is kind of snappy gay dialogue.
Well, no,
like
it is like, even when he walks out, once he's killed the first two men and he's going after the woman, when he's standing in the doorway, he's doing
he strikes a pose.
Yes, it's a pose.
I was like, yes, okay. Assume you're RuPaul Drag Race, like.
Now, I think that you could, because I mean, again, like you have when the girl yells back at him, like, "Oh, see, you are a monster," and that I don't really mind it because I'm like, whatever, like he's killing these people. But again, making the queer person, oh, see, now we're going even back here. So, not the villain, but he is a monster. But the short never clarifies whether or not his monster form is a result of his queerness, and I think that's good. If it was a thing where it's like, oh, he's a monster because he's queer,
right?
Like, okay, yeah, I mean that would be a bit more problematic for me, but the film doesn't do anything to like it's more ambiguous, and so I don't read it that way. And also, if the film did make that stance where it was like, oh, if you're queer, you're a monster, then why would there be a victim in the closet that wasn't also turning into a monster, you know?
Which is, I think, actually the reason why that character exists. It's to prove that he's not a monster. He will only do this to the people who would seek to harm queer people.
Yeah.
And it's also important that it's the woman who yells this at him, right? He agrees with her, but she's the one who's suggesting that he is a monster. He merely says, like, yeah, look at me. Sure, yeah. I'm wearing this form. I'm not going to deny that. But I've actually read this film as he is doing to them what they do to him. Like, he is actively trolling these message boards, looking for... I mean, maybe he's looking for hookups, but maybe he's also looking to get picked up by these people so that he can execute revenge on them.
Maybe I do like that reading. The only thing is, though, he undergoes some like violence for a bit too long for my taste before he makes the change. Like,
okay,
that was like, I mean, like, again, like, you know, he could have like gone like morphed as soon as he wakes up in the tub, but we have to go through a bit of him getting, you know, shaved and peed on.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. Maybe you wouldn't subject yourself to that if you were doing this on the regular.
That's my thought. Unless he was into water sports, which may be a thing. I don't know.
It's a little bit role play. It maybe went too far. All right, I'm pulling your heart out.
But no, I mean, I really enjoyed this. I can see how someone might view it as problematic, but I don't subscribe to that reading of it. I think it's a very well done film. It's shot well, it's acted well, it's really tense and also funny, which when you're dealing with a subgenre of horror like this, which I'm just going to group it in rape revenge, even though we're not, it's assault, you know, it's assault and revenge.
Yeah.
I think it's really that it wins at least me over to where I am laughing along with this character after what I have just witnessed him go through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe that is problematic, but I don't think that is.
Yeah, I don't... I agree, because I think that there's a pretty clear way to read this, and if you want to problematize it, I think you're probably putting it into context. Like, I did see one review that suggested, oh, well, I'm not exactly sure about this idea that he's a monster, because queer people are often made the monster of horror films, and they cited, you know, Buffalo Bill. And I was like, this is not the same thing as that. This is a sympathetic monster, more akin to like a Frankenstein. Sorry, Frankenstein Screecher. Don't tweet me.
The horror bros are going to come after you for that one.
Yeah.
No, I get that. And I think you're right. But I mean, I guess then the question I want to ask you, Joe, is would you watch a feature-length version of this?
I would like to see my reading expanded into a feature version. So a kind of queer Avenger who is out there righting the wrongs in these ridiculous nation states that are trying to condemn queer lifestyles. I would 100% watch a rape revenge kind of like fuck me up movie like that.
I really would too. And I think if you take the kind of Marta's approach to the narrative where it's like, oh, we're going to change the movie basically twice. Like, so end of Act 1, boom, it's revealed what he's doing. End of Act 2, boom, I don't know, some other reveal. I'm trying to think of what else you could do. But again, that you're expanding it to feature length. So cool, give me another surprise at the end of that second act. Yeah, this queer avenging angel, I think, is a really, really cool concept. And I think if you can structure it like this, I mean, it's one of the... It is one of the longer shorts we've covered. It's 15 minutes long. And so I think that you could find a way to make this work. And also, I want to know more about Pyotr.
Yeah, I mean, what happens with these two afterwards? Like, maybe they become a kind of Batman and Robin sort of dynamic duo.
Oh,
maybe they're like Blade Trinity, where they just get all kinds of high-tech weapons and stuff.
Yeah. Oh my god. Well, I don't need that, but... but you know what, though? If we're going for like comic book angle, which I think you could make it work like this, yeah, where it is a Blade type thing. Sure. Like, this is the origin story, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, okay, listeners, let us know what you thought about Pyotr495, and we hope that your 2021 has gotten off to a fantabulous start. But I guess we'll end our first micro-queers of the year there and cross out Pyotr495.
Yes, and cross out micro-queers.
Disgusting Podcast Network, home of creepy, disturbing, and terrifying creepypastas, SCP archives, weekly full cast storytelling, Kapora queers, genre commentary from an LGBTQ perspective, and the Boo Crew, horror-centric interviews. Listen free wherever you stream audio and at bloodydisgusting.com/podcasts.
It was late in the afternoon when the professor and I took our way towards the east, whence I knew Jonathan was coming.
Jonathan Harker has asked me to note this, as he says he is hardly equal to the task. and he wants an exact record kept.
Dear Madam Mina, I have read your husband's so wonderful diary. Strange and terrible as it is true. I will pledge my life on it.
God preserve my sanity, for to this I am reduced. Safety and the assurance of safety are things of the past.
I am in hopes that I shall see more of you at Castle Dracula.
Listen to Regarding Dracula wherever you listen to podcasts, or find us online at bloody.fm.